Chinese electric vehicles are going to push Detroit into another bailout unless they pay attention and they make some serious changes quickly. It's happening very quickly. So fast, you might not even have noticed that these changes are happening. Over the past few months, America's big three automakers, Ford, General Motors, and Stellantis owns Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, and Ram, landed in big trouble. Now, Tesla is actually one of the big three U.S. automakers because they do produce here in the U.S., and Stellantis is actually based in Belgium, but we still call them the big three, just so you understand where we're talking about cars being made here in the USA. I realize this may sound silly to you. Ford, General Motors, and Stellantis made billions of dollars in profits last year, even after a lengthy strike with the UAW autoworkers, and all three companies had profits in 2024. But recently, the big three found themselves in an outmaneuvering position where they missed their goal for electric vehicle sales at the same time that a crop of new affordable electrified foreign cars appeared. And they're ready to flood the global market, possibly from China if they're allowed to import them here into the US. And this is where they could find themselves in big trouble. I'll tell you more, but first I want to remind you to like this video and subscribe to our channel to keep up with what's going on in the automotive world. About a decade ago, America bailed out the big three. Politicians and taxpayers swore they would not do it again. But the federal government is going to have to help the big three and the rest of the U.S. car market again very soon if they don't pay attention. And this, to me, is a bad idea. You need to let the free market reign. But also you have to have a fair playing field. The biggest threat to the big three comes from a new crop of Chinese automakers, especially BYD, which specializes in producing plug-in hybrids and fully electric vehicles. BYD's growth is astounding. It sold 3 million electrified vehicles last year, more than any other car company, and now has enough production capacity in China to manufacture 4 million cars a year. BYD is building new factories in Mexico, Brazil, Thailand, Hungary, and Uzbekistan, which produce even more vehicles. A deluge of Chinese vehicles is coming, and we need to figure out how to survive because it does impact our economy. BYD's cars deliver great value at prices that beat anything coming out of other brands. Recently, BYD unveiled a plug-in hybrid that gets decent all-electric range and will retail for just over $11,000. How can they sell a vehicle at that price? Well, like other Chinese manufacturers, BYD benefits from its home country's low labor costs. But this explains only some of its success. The fact that BYD and Chinese automakers like Geely, which owns Volvo and Polestar, are very good at making cars, and they are subsidized by the Chinese government. So this is where the difference is. The car might be worth $40,000, and if they put $20,000 toward it, then you're paying $20,000 for a car that competes with it at a substantially higher price, so the price is low and you get vehicles that consumers are buying. Now, this lowers the price of vehicles to consumers. They have leveraged Chinese dominance on the battery industry because they own all the mines and have automated production lines to build cars faster, and this means using less people at reduced costs. Ford and General Motors plotted an ambitious electric vehicle transition 3 years ago, but it didn't take long for them to stumble. Last year, Ford lost more than $64,000 on every electric vehicle they sold. Since October, it has delayed the opening of its new electric vehicle battery plant, and General Motors has fumbled the start of its Ultium battery platform, which is meant to be the foundation of all of its future electric cars. Ford and General Motors have had some wins, with the Mustang Mach-E and the Chevrolet Bolt being modest, low-priced cars, but they aren't competing at the levels of Tesla and Hyundai, companies that operate factories in less union-friendly states. The other looming problem for Ford and General Motors is that their balance sheets, while they look robust, conceal a huge vulnerability. While the two companies have done generally well in recent years, their billions of dollars in profits have come overwhelmingly from selling quite a large number of SUVs and pickup trucks. Specifically, Ford and General Motors earnings rest primarily on selling these vehicles in North America. Crossovers, trucks, and SUVs are being sold fully loaded to affluent North Americans. This creates a strategic issue for them. They must use their strong truck and SUV earnings to subsidize less profitable vehicles like electric vehicles and their business as they learn how to make electric vehicles profitable without the tax incentive, because that's definitely going away. If they can figure that out, they're going to survive. Otherwise, they got to build vehicles that consumers want. And that's why the flood of cheap Chinese electric vehicles poses such a big problem. It could ruin Ford and GM market share. Even a wave of competitive electric cars from automakers like Kia and Hyundai could eat away at their profits because they can make low-cost electric vehicles, and they're ready to go with that. The Chinese car makers are the first real competition that the global car industry has faced in decades when the Japanese and Koreans entered the U.S. car market. Trump will want to prevent Chinese cars and imports from entering our market, but it does not stop them from building here in the U.S. and being subsidized from China, and that will certainly make a big difference. President Trump plans to gut the Inflation Reduction Act and place tariffs on China and other countries if they're going to import. So that will deny them from importing, but it doesn't stop them from building here in the U.S. And this could be one way to protect the U.S. auto industry. Import restrictions imposed on Chinese cars in the next few years won't necessarily be permanent. That might encourage American companies to learn everything they can from the new Chinese competition. That would be smart. And another important factor to know is that Chinese industry analysts have been predicting a shakeout in the Chinese auto industry, and it looks like it's already started. Out of the 112 brands that sell electric vehicles in China, 23 of them are either folding or consolidating with other companies, and that happened in 2024. Now, taken as a whole, the Chinese industry is operating below 50% capacity utilization, which means they can produce a lot more cars. And the CEO of XPeng predicts that Chinese industry has entered the elimination round, where a lot more automakers will disappear over the next 2 years. And we just don't want that to be U.S. car makers because there are jobs attached to that, and it impacts our economy. The largest state-owned automakers like SAIC and FAW are expected to survive, and so are the large independent companies like BYD, Li Auto, Great Wall, and NIO. But the smaller companies won't be able to compete with them and will start to go out of business. For many Chinese automakers, 2025 is going to be a really tough year. Even so, the ones that survive are going to be extremely competitive, and that will make the Chinese auto industry even stronger than it is today, and they'll still get the Chinese government subsidies to help lower costs to consumer. Excess capacity among car makers in China is driving the world's largest automakers into a shakeout phase. Chinese makers are looking overseas to absorb their production. That is getting harder because of the rising trade barriers and tariffs, and the U.S. is not alone. The European Union in October imposed tariffs of up to 45% on made-in Chinese EVs, as China has negatively impacted the German economy because they're making less cars and they're losing jobs, and they've had to shut down 3 plants. That's a serious problem. We will keep you posted on the auto industry, but we do not want to bail out these car companies. The car companies need to build vehicles people want without subsidies, without politics. Just build what we want to drive, and they will survive. If you like this video, give it a like and subscribe for more videos like this, and check out our car review channel, Car Smarts. You can support me by buying me a cup of coffee, and if you want even more content, check out the links in the description. I'm Lauren Fix. Thank you so much for watching.